how's everybody doing? We are here for another episode of MEC TV and super hype. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, podcasting. So if you guys are showing up live or showing up on the replay, let me know. Comment below, comment live or comment replay. Or if you guys are checking this out on YouTube or the podcast, leave a comment, leave a review, subscribe. We love you. Appreciate you guys. And ready for another episode of MEC TV. So I'm super hyped for this one. Finally get to connect the man, the myth, the legend, Zachary Babcock, and chat some podcasting. So what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I felt the same way connecting with the man, the myth, the legend, man. We've been talks for a while, but I'm super stoked to be here, man. You built an incredible audience, man. I see it every day in the Facebook group. Just really glad to be here, man.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so you want to give people a little bit of background on you, a little bit of your story, and what to expect on the session today?
Yeah, no doubt, man. So we're definitely talk about podcasts, and I'd like to stay in my zone of genius just like you do as well. But, man, I did over 5 years of my life in prison from being a knucklehead growing up. Just wanted to fit in with the crowd. Well, actually, I wanted to stand out from the crowd, so I'd do stupid stuff to get chuckles out of people and stuff. And yeah, just making a lot of poor decisions. Well, I went back to prison for 8 months, just 20 days before my twin sons were born. And man, that was the moment for me where it's just like a complete paradigm shift. I said, enough, man, I'm done. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out to be a responsible father and happy and successful. Didn't even know what that looked like. But, sometimes you don't need to know how. You just need to have those strong enough reasons why. And over the course of the last 4.5 years, I'm here now, and I do Top Shelf Podcasts, man. Been able to launch a Top Shelf podcast and help other people do the same.
I love it, man. And let's dive into that story a little bit of like between, going to prison, doing all this stuff, you had some kind of a idea going through your head. I want to be more. I want to be bigger. I want to come out on top. And that led you into, entrepreneurship and podcasting. Let's get into that a little bit, man. What was some of that transition? Because that's where, a lot of people, they're going to stay in that stuck mode, in that past, and not want to go bigger and better and actually pursue it. But you did. So tell me a little bit more about that, man. What happened?
Yeah, man. It kind of goes a little bit before I actually got locked up. I was working at Bar and Grill as a cook, working 50 to 60 hours a week. Couldn't get much of a better job than that. Well, I was shopping at this clothing store. I got hired on one day because I used to buy a lot of stuff from there. And 3 days in, I got promoted because I sold 3,000 a holster to 9,000. I was like, yes, I'm putting my past behind me. I'm advancing and things are looking up. And I put in my 2 weeks at the Bar and Grill where I had some stability in my life. And then 2 days later, because I got that promotion, it raised red flags and they gave me a call, human resources. They're like, yeah, you're a convicted felon, man. You got to kick rocks.
Oh, and wow.
Yeah, so like I thought I was moving forward, then everything got stripped down and I was like, oh man. And instead of, just keeping my chin up and search for other opportunity, I threw a pity party, man. And I became a raging alcoholic, like hardcore, and got a DWI and bonded out from that. And then I went out one night, completely blacked out, drunk, woke up in Ferguson, Missouri Police Department from a blaring headache, completely like, hung over from the night before. And I learned that I was heading back to prison. And dude, that was it for me. It was like that experience. I can't really put it into words, but it was so painful. Like it was like getting dipped in some hot grease and you just immediately want to jump up and move away from pain. It was so painful. I felt big enough to sit on a penny and swing my feet from it, man. Because all I ever wanted was to be the father I didn't have growing up. And that's what started it for me. It was like, man, I'm going to get out and do whatever it takes to be there for my kids. And, I didn't know anything about personal development or entrepreneurship at the time. I just knew the reasons why I wanted to get home. And I started formulating this crazy business idea. It's one hell of a business idea, by the way. During when I got locked up in 2014, the Michael Brown situation happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and that's where I grew up at. And I'm like, man, this neighborhood is not nearly as bad as the media is putting out to be, and it's such a terrible thing to happen. And I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I had tons of experience knocking door to door sales through so many different companies growing up as a teenager and selling T-shirts. I did that later on in my 20s. I was like, I'm going to create these T-shirts that say I Heart Ferguson on them and go sell them door to door. And that was my business plan starting out. Never did get around to it because I didn't have the funds, the capital to start it up, but that was my plan initially.
Nice. Got to start out with some ideas, right? And real quick for all the listeners out there, let me know in the comments, like what was one of your very first business ideas, whether you took it off the ground or not? Like I had a whole bunch of like app ideas and a whole bunch of random crap that I tried to do. I was even like flipping concert tickets for a little while back in college. You know, I make a couple grand here and there. It was cool. But yeah, I don't do that anymore. So let me know in the comments, guys, what was your first business idea, no matter how random or how well it worked. Drop it in the comments. I want to hear it. So, you know, later on, you obviously jumped into podcasting. How did you first get into it, and what were your steps?
Yeah, man. I initially started off in network marketing for 2 years. I built up almost a $2,000 monthly residual income within my 6 months, but at the end of it, it just wasn't for me, man. It just, there are other good companies out there and good network marketers out there, but I was taught to blast everybody on your friends list and hit them up for an opportunity or buy your product. And I just began to feel like a parasite, and it just wasn't my thing. And so I moved on to coaching. I was like, that's what I want to do. And I became a quote unquote life coach. And man, did I want to bash my head into the wall. My messaging was just nowhere. It was all over the place. I would say things like, I help you live a better life, or I help you achieve your goals. It was horrible, dude. And I didn't make a single dime or help a single person with my life coaching. And, but I didn't give up, man. And I was like, man, I'm going to figure this out. And it was really stressful. There was plenty of nights just beating up the keyboard, trying to figure out how to build funnels and all this other crap, and really not just figuring out who my market is and how best I could serve them and what specific problems I solve for them. Well, I launched the podcast, Underdog Empowerment, because I remember going through the Funnel Hacks course in Russell Brunson. He was telling a story about how this guy was mentioning how like nobody would give him the time of day to before, and nobody would collaborate with him or anything until he launched his podcast. When he launched his podcast, he became the guy, the go-to guy. Everybody wanted to get on his show. And that resonated with me, man, because I was like, here I am, you know, I felt like a complete underdog. I am like, nobody would give me the time of day before I tried to collaborate. And all I was this ex-convict turned entrepreneur afterthought. And so I just did it, man. And I launched it. And it blew up. It became a top 200 rated podcast in the first week. And exactly what Russell was talking about, like it instantly changed my status, credibility, influence, and respect, and so on.
Absolutely. Love it, man. You know, I got a similar story around that for podcasting. Like a lot of people don't know, I actually started this group after I started a podcast. I kind of imported some of that audience over into the MEC when I kicked that off. But I knew deep down that if I could have an audience and if I could have some way to add value to people, that I could always leverage that to build connections, build relationships, talk to people I really wanted to talk to. I can't just, you know, phone up some of these random people and say, hey, you want to hang out and talk for 45 minutes? They'd be like, no. We say, hey, you want to hang out and talk for 45 minutes? And then I'll share the recording with other people. They're like, yeah, you know? So if you guys are considering starting a podcast, and you are, you know, building your network, you're starting out, do it. Like it was hands down one of the best investments of my time and into my network that I could have made when I was just getting going. I wasn't really capitalizing on it. I tried a lot of things, but it didn't work for a whole lot of reasons. But it gave me a really strong foundation and helped me build my network and build my audience, which later on I was able to use in so many different ways, and also kickstart this Facebook group. So if you guys are wanting to start a podcast, awesome. Do it and listen to the rest of this stream, guys. It's going to be some powerful stuff. So there must have been like some big thing that happened between you thinking, okay, cool, that sounds like a good idea, to, you know, getting started, launching a show, topping the charts. Let's get into that story a little bit, because that's a cool transformation of, oh, that sounds like a good idea, to doing it and topping the charts. So what happened there?
Yeah, man, it's funny. I tell this story and I share the screenshot a lot. So I met Billy Genius Marketing at an event in Los Angeles or Long Beach back in 2017 of August. And afterwards, a few months afterwards, I reached out to him and I was trying to collaborate with him. I was trying to put on an online summit and have him come on. And he opened up the message like right when I sent it, looked at it, never responded. And then I launched the podcast, became a top 200 rated podcast in the first week. And I sent him another message like, Billy, I just ranked my podcast in the top 200. dude, I would love to interview you on the show, man. Can we make that happen? He opened it again pretty quickly and instantly replied with his assistant's email, said she got my schedule. And then we got him on the show. And
Nice.
it's crazy, man. It's been like, it's like before these people were untouchable or had gatekeepers or whatnot, and they didn't, you know, they value their time, so they're not going to just do anything, but they see value in being able to come on a platform, you know, to share whatever they have going on with your audience. So it's a huge deal.
Definitely, especially when you start landing some big names like Billie Jean. And I know you've had just a killer lineup of guests, and we can show that to other people. Say, hey, you know, it's not just a bunch of average shows that you don't recognize. It's like these industry pros. People want to associate with that. And then what happens too is people start associating your name with those names, and it's like snowballs up. Like, huh, these guys are up to something. They're talking to some really cool people over here. I wonder what they got going on, and that helps you get your listeners in too.
Hell yeah, man. Exactly. 100% on that.
Mm-hmm. It's like a win-win-win for sure. For, you know, you as the host, you get to network, get your message out, build your audience. For the audience, getting a ton of value from all these shows, and for the guests, getting to share their message too. So it's a big win, guys.
Yeah, like you mentioned too, man. And what's even really cooler, man, is like to give it another example. Like, so Ryan Stewman, I interviewed him on my podcast a few months ago, and built a relationship. And what I've noticed from like with celebrities type guests, like whenever you have like a celebrity, professional athlete, or industry leader, you're really not trying to get them to like share it out to their audience or add some things. What your main goal, well, at least what I do, is my main goal is to build a strong relationship with them and figure out a way how I can serve them. And yeah, I know in most cases, these guys have way more money than you, way more credibility, connections, all that. But there's a way that you could find that you can add some value. So what I did with, in this specific case, I built a relationship with Ryan. And then I told him, hey, man, your phone sites software, I think that'd be a really great fit for my audience. Now, I wouldn't use it personally because I've already upgraded to ClickFunnels and have like, you know, email sequence stuff, all that set out. But I know there's a lot of guys in my audience that could benefit from having a simple platform like phone sites and create, you know, be able to capture emails and like that instantly. And so I became an affiliate, started, you know, adding value, figured out, hey, I want to endorse your product and promote it to my audience. And then recently I reached out to him, was like, hey, man, I want to put you and some other prominent guests that I have. I just want to transcribe our episodes and then send them off to an editor and create a book and have you co-author with it. Can we do that? And then we hopped on a call and talked about it. I said, yeah, man, after I have this in-person interview with Andy Frisilla on May 1st, I'm going to go ahead and do it. He said, well, why don't you just come down here and do another in-person interview with me and get that way. And then you can have some cool little footage to run your audience. I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. And now
Nice.
I'm having a follow-up interview with him in May and stuff. So you never know where that relationship could go is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, true that. Never really do. And like, I remember at one point when I first started my podcast, and I relaunched it. I took about almost a 2-year break from that podcast. And when I look back at all of those episodes that I published previously, about 50% of those guests I had done some sort of business with or collaborated with. I hired them, they hired me, we worked together, we co-promoted some way. So it's just crazy the amount of doors that open when you are just so giving and showing up with value. So if you guys are hyped on this right now, if you have a podcast or you want to start a podcast, just type a hell yes down in the comments, because I want to make sure you guys see the power in all this stuff, because it's a huge opportunity, and it's a ton of fun too. So type a hell yes in the comments, and we'll get started on some more of the how-tos, nuts and bolts with this guide.
Awesome, man.
Let's do it. So how do you want to run through this this training part on getting people started with all this?
Yeah, I like to hit on it's most people like to hear the ninja hack stuff, which I'm going to share. That's what people are like. They always want to know that. But the most important part is the 4 W's, what I call it, the foundation of your podcast. And so I definitely want to hit on that. And then I'll share some ninja hacks on how to like hack audiences and grow the podcast and stuff like that.
Let's do it. I'll be commenting down below with your W's. So everybody check them out, take some notes, and let's get into it.
Sweet. Oh, you want me to go ahead with it?
Yeah, go for it. Get in there.
I thought I was waiting on you. My bad. Yeah, man. So like I was mentioning, everybody wants to know the ninja hack stuff and how to grow, and which is important. And I'm going to share that. But man, this right here, I swear to God, this is the most important thing that you could do for your podcast. Because if you don't have this, you're not going to have long-term success. And a lot of people won't even come check you out if you don't have these 4 W's in, is what I call. So first off, the first W is the what. What is your podcast about? And you got to really be able to communicate that. It's all about communication of what your podcast is about and be able to communicate it in 1 sentence or less. So if somebody were to ask you, hey man, what is your podcast about? You need to clearly articulate it. And then you can expand on that in more sentences in your show description whenever you're launching your podcast. So that way, when people are coming to check you out and they land on your podcast, maybe through a keyword, or they hear about it and they come check you out and they read that, they know exactly what they're going to get. It's just like communication is just like baseball. A bad throw in baseball costs you a run, or potentially costs you a couple runs, or even potentially costs you a game. Like when people come to your podcast and they check you out and they can't clearly understand what you're communicating, what the podcast is about, they could end up never checking you out. And that could have been a raving fan that could have shared it with all their friends and brought you so many listeners and became a customer for your products. You never know. So you want to really make sure you hammer in on what it is that your podcast is about. And then secondly, we hammer in on who. The second W is the who. Who is it? Who's your audience? Obviously, if you don't have an audience, you're just talking into a microphone to air. And what I like to do, man, it's really very similar, so similar to building out your customer avatar in business. But there are some slight differences. Like, so for a hypothetical situation in business, if you're in e-commerce, you could have multiple different audiences and selling different products. And you might not even have to ever show your face or talk. You could just be running ads to it and never, they never know about you. But within podcasting, it's different because you are the face, you're the voice. People are tuning in because they want to hear you and hear your views on things and your beliefs and what you have to share and your expertise. So what I like to do is I like to share with who I was yesterday. So for instance, for an example, I'm an underdog entrepreneur, and I share everything that I learned on my journey to level up in business and life with underdog entrepreneurs, people that are just like me, like that alpha male, kind of rough around the edges archetype. Now, I also say that I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything about psychology, business, and marketing. However, it's my journey. I'm documenting everything I learned in the process to share it with you guys here on this podcast. It's the whole mission of it. So it's really key to be transparent about that too with your audience. And third W is where, and that is where are you taking them? Everybody, they need a fearless leader to get behind that can clearly articulate where it is that they're going to take them. And it has to be a future that they desire, that they want, and that they have faith in. Because people that have fear in the future, they tend to cling to the present and become paralyzed and not take action. But if you can articulate a future that they have faith in and that they desire, it renders them perceptive to change. So clearly demonstrate where it is that you're taking them in your podcast. And then finally, man, the why. Why should people check out you and your podcast? And this is a big one, man. And going back to the e-com example, there's probably hundreds, maybe even thousands. I know there's a lot of e-com podcasts out there. So why should people listen to your podcast about e-com? Well, obviously, you're you and you're uniquely different. Everybody's different. So that's a plus right out the gate. But why should they come and check it out from you? And I clearly hit on this right out the gate. The first sentence in my show description on podcasts, I say, from living with convicted felons for over 5 years of my life to rubbing elbows with multimillionaires every day. My name is Zachary Babcock, and I'm a student of psychology, business, and marketing, and share everything I learned in my journey of an underdog entrepreneur to level up in business and life. And I say that right out the gate, and that's unique. It's different. And I say I have a unique perspective from both extremes of life. So I'm saying, hey, I've seen this, at an angle from being a convict in prison, and now I'm rubbing elbows with multimillionaires. I have a wide, broad perspective on things. So that sets me apart. Now, obviously, you might not have went to prison. Not a lot of people have went to prison, but there is a angle, a way that you can attack it. Maybe you're really good at injecting humor throughout the episode, and now you're educating and entertaining. Or maybe you're really polarizing on certain subjects where all the other podcasts are out there are really cut and dry. So a good example to do this, and what I share with all my students to do, is to list out the top 10 e-commerce podcasts, or whatever, the top 10 podcasts that are in your space. And then now you have that list to potentially go on their show, or they can come on yours. But more importantly, you can look at the list and say, all right, so how am I different from these other podcasts? I have to stand out some way. How can I do that? And figure that out. And if you implement those 4 W's, that's the key to long-term podcasting success. I promise you it's more important than all the other ninja hacks that we're going to share here in just a moment.
True that. Because, if you mess up one of those, it's like, everything else doesn't matter as much. So one thing that really stood out, what you're saying there, is the documentation and the honesty part of it. That is one of the best ways to humanize yourself and build that true personal brand and connection with thousands and thousands of people at the same time. So that's one thing that I love to do on my show earlier on too, was tell people that hey, I'm still with you guys. I am a millennial entrepreneur trying to figure all this shit out right next to you guys. Yeah, I'm no different than you. We're in this together. So we even have a community of all these people doing this stuff together. Some of us are at different levels. We help each other out, but that's what this community is about. And we're the same. And then people really kind of resonate with that of not having their shit together, because no one has their shit together. And being young entrepreneurs and all that, and having our unique challenges and styles of how we operate. And that really helped everything stand out with this community and my show earlier on. So hope you guys take that seriously and understand that documentation and honesty will take you so much further than fake brand positioning. And a lot of people teach you, you have to show up a certain way, you have to show up as the guru, all this type of stuff. But if you don't have big results, don't tell people you have big results. Tell people you're working on how to get big results. You'll have that organic fortitude of yourself and your brand that you can continue to build on, continue to build real relationships with. You're not bullshitting anybody, and people will see your journey from starting to growing to learning to hitting accomplishments to getting big results, standing out in your niche. And people love that. A lot of the people that I work with now, some of them say, hey, I'll ask them hey, what inspired you to want to work with me? And they'll be like, man, I saw your whole journey from, selling your first course for $37 and now you have a $500,000 plus business. I saw that whole transformation from your tiny Facebook group to this. I want to do that, and I want to do it with you. And it's wow, these people have been following since then. So all of that, nurturing and audience building has been happening that whole time. And that happened because I had a platform like a podcast and a group. So guys, be straight up, do that documentation. And I know you went through a shift of that yourself, and you spoke about this openly before, which I have a ton of respect for, which you felt like you kind of caught yourself in that brand positioning. And then you were like, you know what, this isn't me. I'm going to switch it up. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I was just getting ready to ask you if I could share that. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Dude, everything you just, it's so true. And I could speak from that because I was doing that. So check this out, man. Most people are not as dumb as me and wouldn't have took this long to figure out. But when I launched the podcast, all right, instantly I have credibility as in podcasting. It's my zone of genius. I was able to blow it up right away and start interviewing these celebrities and professional athletes, all this stuff right away, and JV partnerships and rapidly grow the brand through podcasting. However, I'm sitting there okay, I got this podcast. Now I need to figure out, the product or the service that I'm going to sell to my audience and stuff so I can make some money. And I love, and I say this in my podcast, I love psychology, marketing, business. It's I'm a nerd. I geek out on it. I read everything I can and implement it and try things out. However, at this point in time in my life, 6 months ago when I made this announcement, right before I made this announcement, I had not achieved crazy levels of success income-wise through marketing and psychology and stuff like that. But I teamed up with 2 guys that did. One guy had a program that had over 1,000 successful graduates and 20 million in revenues. And the other guy had helped his students generate over 300 million in revenue since 1999. And we teamed up and repurposed that program with 1,000 graduates. And I was like the face of it. We were getting people coming in. We were teaching them lead generation and customer acquisition and scaling a business, which I had not done for myself. And so I'm sitting there trying to achieve what I'm teaching these people, even though I know it's a program that worked for these other people, but I'm sitting here trying to achieve what I'm teaching these people by teaching it. And it was ass backwards, man. And I felt incongruent. I felt like a maggot. I felt like a parasite. I felt it violated my integrity. And I pulled the plug on it, and I made an announcement about that on Christmas Day in 2018. And I told my audience, hey man, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at, but I don't feel like this is not right. I shouldn't be right here right now. I'm skipping steps that can't be skipped. And I'm pulling the plug on it, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board, and I'm going to figure this out. And I'll come back with an offer when I have something legit. And that was hard to do, to put myself out there and say that. And I know it could seem like, oh my God, but dude, that was like one of the best things I ever did, because that built such a deep relationship with they appreciate it. They're like, man, dude, you're a real ass dude, man. I don't know nobody who else would say that, man. I appreciate you coming out and saying that. And dude, at the time, it was scary, but you know what? I went back to the drawing board and for the few months, and then I figured out podcasting. And guess what happened with because we were struggling with that. We were getting in maybe like 2 or 3 people coming into our program a week, and it wasn't really highly profitable. But then I landed on the podcasting, and the first moment I launched a podcast, I found my zone of genius, something that I can actually deliver a result in, that I have proof in. And I made more money in that first month of running that offer than I ever made in 4 months of my life combined before that. So that's how powerful that is, of saying integrity.
Yeah. And especially when you feel that deep down that you're not in the right spot, you don't show up 100% at all. You can't show up for your customers. You can't show up for yourself. You can't even show up in the right mental headspace every day if you know what you're doing is out of whack. And then when you switch and step into that, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. This is where holy shit, it works now. Like, what do you know? And you thinking you had to step above and teach like that, instead of just teaching with all the stuff you already have proven. And then what do you know? Results happen. Man. So love that. I remember seeing that transformation too, and kind of like seeing you step up and grow and take that step. So much respect for you there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, brother.
Because a lot of people might try and just keep faking it until they make it, and keeps like just bullshitting it until the people they're helping were already super smart anyways, and they get a win, then they latch onto that and keep trying to say, oh, I helped this guy make $1 million. Like, that guy was probably already going to make $1 million. He just happened to sell him a PDF one time, So can't put that on the testimonials page. But yeah, you made the right choice, man. And if anybody else out there has made a big transformation or dropped a business before, let me know in the comments. I want to hear your stories too. What business were you in? Why did you cut it? And what was that next step you made? Because I know we all have stories like that. I cut out a business last year, and I had already invested about $30,000 into it, and we cut it right 2 days before we launched. We cut it, we chopped its head off, and we buried it. That's a story for another day. You guys are gonna have to ask me about. But I had to step up and make that decision, shut it off. Lost 30 grand, and more importantly, about 4 months of mine and my team's time. But crazy story there. I should make that like a solo podcast. I'll do that for another day. Don't worry about it, guys. This is a long one. But yeah, man, good call there. And so everybody out there listening, let me know, guys, what else do you want to know about podcasting? What questions do you have? And let's get into some of that ninja stuff. I know you said you had some cool ninja hacks for people too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'll tell you exactly how to rank your podcasts in a few hours or less right now. So everybody acts like this is a big deal, man, and it's not. And check it out. You're not going to stay up there in the beginning, but the big deal is about getting ranked, taking that screenshot and using it as leverage to get these big name guests on your show, and being able to say, hey, I'm a top 200 rated podcaster on iTunes. That's huge. And it opens up so many doors. And then if you're serious about podcasting, you stick with it, you'll climb back up into the rankings. But everybody thinks like, oh, I got to do all this crazy different stuff. Look, there's only 4 metrics that matter. And that's getting reviews, getting ratings, getting downloads, and getting subscribers. That's it. That's the only way that you can get ranked on iTunes. There's no other way. You don't have to have the secret connection with the person that's running the iTunes. None of that crap, man. It's just having those 4 metrics. So in the first 8 weeks of being on iTunes, you're going to get favored more than you will after that 8 weeks. You'll be able to end up on New and Noteworthy, and they push your podcast harder in the first 8 weeks. So what you do, and both of my clients that have launched their podcasts, both been able to hit the top 200 in less than 48 hours using the same exact strategy, what I'm going to share with you right now. All you do is people will make posts and ask people to go subscribe and rate and review their podcast and all this stuff. And that's cool. But most people aren't going to take an action on that just by seeing a Facebook post. They want to hear a specific, you got to talk to them specifically about that. So what I do is I reached out to people personally and sent them a message, and I'd say, hey, Arne, I have a huge favor to ask you. And then I'd wait for you to respond. I wouldn't just spam you with a link right away. I'd wait for you to respond. And then you'd be like, hey, man, yeah, what's up? And I'd be like, hey, dude, can you subscribe to my podcast and write a 5-star review if I send you the link? And you'd be like, if you say yes or no, if you say yes, well, I'd be like, cool. I would say, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Boom, pop in the link. And that's it. As simple as that. And to give an example, Andrew Kaplan with the Shatter the Mold podcast, he's on New and Noteworthy right now on iTunes. He hit the top 200 and New and Noteworthy, like right around 50 something reviews. It took just under 48 hours. Carlos Redlick with the Copy Closer podcast that just launched, he's sitting up there as well, and he hit it in less than 48 hours as well, like right around 30 or 40 reviews. I can't remember exactly, using that same exact simple strategy of messaging people individually and asking them to leave you a review and subscribe to your podcast. And the reason why you asked just for those two, you only ask for the written review and the subscribe, because when they subscribe, it automatically downloads your podcast, and then they'll be downloading your podcast every time you launch new stuff. And so you're hitting on both metrics there. And then when you write a review, you have to rate it. You have to give it a 1, 2, or 3, or 4, 5-star. So you ask for the written review, and it covers both metrics there. And then it's really key, though, not to just blast people with your link. Ask them, hey, I have a huge favor to ask you. Wait for the response, and then say, hey, can you subscribe and leave the review if I send you the link, and say if I send you the link, and then wait for them to see what they say. And I promise you get, over the course of 2 days, rack up somewhere around 30 to 50 written reviews. You'll be ranked in the top 200 on iTunes, and you'll be able to leverage that to get top people on your podcast and blow up from that. And that's exactly how I started my podcast and helped other people do the same.
Love it. And it's super simple. And when you really got those tight connections, those friends, they'll share it out too. They'll be like, hey, shout out to Arne. He just launched his podcast. Check it out. Blah, blah, blah. Drop it to their audiences. And what do you know? It all just keeps rolling. And that's always really cool to see too, is like the hype around a new show and people really believing in that message and paying attention, and then continuing to pay attention, watching those numbers go up, watching people truly engaging with your stuff, and knowing that your message is making a difference. That's so cool to see.
Yeah, man. 100%, dude.
For sure. So tell me a little bit more about your show, man. Like, so we know a little bit about it now, but like, how would you sum it up? So what's your show all about?
Yeah, man. So I started off in a lot of the so I think this is important to say, because a lot of people might be listening right now and be like, well, man, I don't know. I have never done it before, and I might suck at it. Look, man, I sucked at it too. All right. And that's the key. You're going to suck when you first start. If you go and listen to the first episodes, the early episodes, like, to me, at least for me, listening to those, they're gut wrenching, because I'm like, oh my God, I was a horrible interviewer. And I just, I wasn't good at the time. And we got over 102 episodes produced, and we just released actually episode 84 today. And I just now around in episode, my interview with Dan Henry, I know you're really tight with Dan, and that interview, I feel like I really stepped into my podcasting voice. I feel like I really started getting a grasp of it. And that was a kick-ass interview, by the way. Dan is hilarious. He even flamed me because he was asking me a question. It's like, have you ever heard of band live before? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, who? And I was like, because he's giving an example of like webinars, and I was like, Fall Out Boy. He's like, well, who the hell listens to Fall Out Boy? I was like, really, dude? But that's besides the point. But my point is just you'll come into it as time goes on. And Underdog Empowerment is the top resource for underdog entrepreneurs to level up in their business and life. All right, that's my what. My who is underdog entrepreneurs. And I phrase it by any underdog entrepreneur that has a grandiose vision with all the odds stacked against them, with everybody counting them out and even laughing at them, regardless of the current resources, but they're doing whatever it takes to win and to level up. So that's how I term underdog entrepreneur. And I state that over and over and over again in all my podcasts. And then my where is I'm going to help you get to the next level as an underdog entrepreneur so that you can prove those haters wrong and get the respect that you deserve. And then the why should you listen to me? I hit on that already is, I spent over 5 years of my life in prison with convicted felons, so rubbing elbows with multimillionaires every day. And I have a wide range of perspective from both extremes of life. So that's like the 4 W's condensed, but it's really just, man, providing the best resource for those underdog entrepreneurs. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And like you said, it's so fun podcasting, dude. Once you get into it, dude, it's like, it's I could do it all day long.
Yeah. And not only does it help like you get a voice, but it gives your audience a voice and say, hey, you're not alone. Hey, there are people out there just like you. Hey, I've done X, Y, and Z, even though I was in prison. And there's going to be a lot of people out there thinking, oh, I'm not going to amount to shit because I went to prison, and then you come along, guys like you, guys like Ryan, they come out, they're like, hey, guess what? That's not true. Let me show you why. And then people are like, whoa, okay, cool. And then they start stepping into their power, start finding their voice. So that ripple effect of the podcast is awesome. And I definitely found that a lot in finding my own voice with the podcast where, with my first episodes, joke. They were terrible, It was like, what was I even talking about? So Dan Henry was actually my episode number 1 a little over 3 years ago now when my podcast dropped. And also hilarious episode. I got to go check out that one on your show with him too. But, over time, doing all those episodes, it was like, I got better at presenting. I got better at speaking. I got better at asking questions. And a side effect to that was I got better at sales because I knew how to talk to entrepreneurs finally. If you talk to entrepreneurs a few times a week, you're really trying to figure them out and learn what makes their head tick, you're going to get really good at sales. We're not trying to sell anything from anybody, but we're trying to extract the best value, the best stories we can out of them for the shows. So if you can do that and then do it on a sales call later and really figure out what makes somebody tick, you're going to be able to help them out. So that's like another little hidden benefit for podcasting you got to talk about sometimes. Like, hey, you ever sell stuff? They're like, yeah. Want to get better at selling stuff? Do a podcast.
Yeah, dude. Hey, you hit the nail right on the head with that one. It's true, man. You get to know them and you do it over, and that repetition, it builds those skills up. You become a master of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially when I was starting out, I didn't have a million business owner connections or friends, so I didn't know how to talk to business owners. It's very different. Where if you can figure out that flow, how people think, how people talk, how people react, and you can start to get that lingo down, that's going to help you in every area. Because you don't want to just come in clueless like I did on my first few episodes, and maybe you on your first few episodes too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're horrible.
Yeah, but you learn it and you make it happen, and that's what I love. That sums up entrepreneurship. That sums up being an underdog. Nothing's going well, but you figure it out. So love it, man. All right, let's see. So somebody asked, what platform would you suggest for the non-tech savvy?
For the non-tech savvy. So be honest with you guys, I can't really suggest any platform that I don't have experience with myself. So I'm not very tech savvy as well. I use Libsyn, and it's a simple format. I even have tutorial videos on YouTube that shows you how to use it and how to set it up. And it's not really that like, oh my God, intimidating. Like, come on now. I've been in prison. When I went to prison in 2008, at 19 years old, and came home at 23 in 2012. When I left, we had baggy clothes and flip phones, and I come home and we had these touch screen phones. And I asked my friend to use a phone for the first time. I was like, dude, what the hell is this? I just want to make a phone call. You know what I'm saying?
Where's the buttons?
Right. So it's not super intimidating. It's really, it's just filling out the right information. It's so simple. There's like 3 different tabs that you got to know about. So Libsyn is the spot to go to for your hosting. They gave you some cool stats. It's like $15. It starts off at $5 a month. I'd recommend at $15 a month. That's what I'm currently on too. I put out 2 shows a week. It's enough. They had to put out 2 shows a week, and it gives me the stats of what countries people download from, and exactly how many downloads per episode and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's cool, and like it's really not too hard to use. Like if you can upload a Facebook post, you can upload a podcast. It's just, the fields are just in little different places. So don't worry about it. Use Libsyn. I use it too. And they got awesome customer service there. So go hit them up. All right, let's see. Any other questions, you guys, or should we wrap up and give you guys some podcasting goodies? What do you think? So Sherry asked, how often do you podcast? You said 2 a week, right?
Yeah, and that's a question I get a lot. And there's no right or wrong answer. Really, the best answer is as much as you can. The more quality content you could put out, the better. Look at John Lee Dumas, who was the first interview entrepreneurs every single day on his podcast and became award-winning podcast on iTunes. So the more quality content you put out, the better. But I'd say nothing less than a week minimum, at once a week minimum. Me currently, I'm doing twice a week, and I'm getting ready to bump it up to 3 times a week.
Nice. Love it. Yeah, I do 2 a week as well. We do 1 interview and 1 solo show, and we end up just repurposing these live streams. So you guys might be watching this on YouTube right now. You guys might be watching this on a podcast right now. You guys might be watching this MEC TV live. If you guys are live on the MEC right now, let me get a comment. Type MEC TV down below. And because we spread them all over the place, and it's really good for creating content to repurpose too. Like you can get little sound bites. You can get video clips like this. And just use it for whatever you want. You'll get super inspired. So yeah, I think 2 a week is really good. It is time and effort and production for sure, but it'll help speed everything up for you guys.
Amen. 100%.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Sounds good. Well, I think we're about wrapped up. I know you have some goodies for people. Can you tell people what you got for them and where they can go get it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a lead magnet is what I use to build a relationship with my audience and show people exactly how to do the technical stuff and get your podcast launched. We cover the 4 W's, everything you need from equipment, software, all that good stuff. And the thing is too, it's the equipment. You'd be surprised. I got all my podcast equipment. It's $177 that I paid for everything. So it's a drop in a bucket. And that's at podcastpenthouse.com/roadmaps. And in that PDF, it's pretty intensive. It's like 15 pages long. It walks you through step by step. And at the bottom, I have 3 tutorial videos that show you how to edit podcast episodes and how to use all the different softwares for recording on Skype and doing interviews and all that good stuff.
Nice. I just dropped that in the link down below. Once again, guys, that's podcastpenthouse.com/roadmap. That looks pretty dope. And make sure to pick up a copy of that, guys.
Yep, roadmap with a S. Roadmaps.
My
bad. Yeah.
It looks like the roadmap link still works. Hold on, let me see. It might just go straight to your normal website.
Yeah, it might, or it may work.
Oh yeah, it does. Maybe you got that URL too. That works. Nice. Good stuff. So guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them below. We'll try and get to them. But as we wrap up, like what's some big advice you would want to give for all these people out there that want to get started with this, want to make it a success, or they already have a show right now? What would you put in their ear?
Number 1, commit to doing it for at least 1 year minimum. No matter how tough it is or how awesome it is, like you're going to do it for at least 1 year. Because I feel like that 1 year marker is enough time to really grasp what podcasting is all about and to really find your voice. You got to give yourself time to find your voice. And you'll be able to rank right out the gate and be able to start interviewing these celebrities, professional athletes, all that stuff right out the gate. But it takes time. Anything worth having, it's a long-term play. So commit to doing it at least 1 year if you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I got stuck too. I was inconsistent. I did it for a while. I had a bunch out, but then I kind of slipped off and I started picking up on the group and stuff instead. So like if I stuck to it, I bet you I would be like 1 million downloads in by now, like 3. So let's see. Yeah, that would have been about 3 years worth of that stuff. and alongside building this group and a couple episodes a week, I don't know the math on that, but I'm probably be like in the millions of downloads, and I'm not, because I didn't stay consistent. So guys, learn from me, learn from Zach, get that roadmap, check it out, and get it going. So hope you guys find some value in this. And as always, make sure to say thanks to Zach for showing up. He could be anywhere in the world right now, and he's here hanging with us. So man, I appreciate you. And yeah, happy to have you come back on anytime, man.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me in here, man. This has been like, I got to knock this off the bucket list now. I was in MEC, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Good stuff. And looking forward to our interview in a couple weeks here. And I will be on that Underdog show. Excited to be there too.
Can't wait, man. It's going to be fire.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this one. As always, say thank you. Show up, pay attention, take some action, like, rate, subscribe. Drop your feedback, and we're here to help you guys. So catch y'all later on the next one on MEC TV. See ya.
Peace.